Now, the energy crisis is deepening even further. Of course, we woke up to news that South Africa is now at stage 6 of the rolling blackouts. Eskom talking about how constrained the system is, and people face pretty much an average of 9 hours a day during stage 6. But others have been putting, these concerns on social media, saying that they're even hit, up to 11 hours, 12 hours. So certainly quite a lot is going on that front, and Eskom saying that people are still being urged to use electricity sparingly, and much to the disapproval of some. But let's look at these developments with development finance specialist Ruse Moleshe and independent energy research consultant Hilton Trollip. Thank you so much to you both for your time. Ruse, I'm going to begin with you. Are you surprised that we are here?
Hi, Bongiwe. Good afternoon to you and the viewers. No, I'm not surprised that we're here, because we have been indicating that there's an issue with constraints in terms of the supply of power from Eskom. And as you would probably know, it takes a long time to sort out infrastructure. There are long lead times to infrastructure development. Therefore, we are going to be here for quite a while.
And I'm going to get to that issue that they also talked about once again, which is the issue of procurement. But let's get to that in a moment. I'm keen to hear from Hilton. I mean, Hilton, Eskom saying that what took us into stage 6 is the fact that the Kriel unit, which, unit 2, they tripped this morning at 3:39 a.m., they say. And then Kusile unit 3 has started coming back online, but there were problems there as well. Is this the full picture, though, of what is going on?
The full picture is Eskom has got 13 coal-fired power stations, and each one's got 6 of these really big generators in it. That's the total system. So that's about 80 big generators. And apart from Kusile and Medupi, they're all old and they've been hammered. So they can't, we keep on being told it's Eskom's fault because it must fix these things. It must make them young again. It must take old trucks, 80 old trucks, and pretend they're new. But that's not going to happen. I agree with Bongiwe. Basically, they're going to break down. It's just a matter of how many are going to be broken down at a time. Eskom have told us this at their last system status briefing. They've said for the next year, there will be load shedding. Not all the time, but sometimes it will be really bad. So that is what the problem is. It's got all of these power stations, and then the 2 new ones, Medupi and Kusile, they were rushed onto the system when load shedding was approaching in 2008. And a mixture of corruption, bad design, and bad construction of these 2 new power stations mean that they are unlikely to ever reach their full capacity either. So that's the problem. And the only solution, and this has been made very clear by many independent analysts and Eskom, we need to get new generation onto the system as fast as possible. That's what has to happen. The question is, who is responsible for that? And I can tell you what the law says, but maybe I'll leave it there for the moment.
And we'll get there just a moment, Hilton, because that is also part of what Eskom was saying today. But it's not going to result in, a bit of overnight energy that we then see. Things won't move as speedily as possible there. But Ruse, there's something that keeps on coming up at every Eskom briefing. This is the issue of maintenance. They talk about maintenance. They talk about how this needs to happen. It's something that is important all the time. Why is it so difficult, though, to do?
Eskom historically used original equipment manufacturers to support the maintenance regime within Eskom, which was relatively managed. We were told that because of financial constraints, some of that maintenance has not been done in line with that standard. Now, if there's there also were procurement issues with respect to getting those original equipment manufacturers to support Eskom. So that process depends on financing that Eskom has been talking about. Part of the president plan was to help the Eskom procure as quickly as possible those original equipment manufacturers to support them in this regard. That I think is not happening at this stage. So there are a lot of things that are moving parts within Eskom that is the reason why I'm saying we're still going to have problems in the near future.
And Ruse, what I'm listening to you say then is that Eskom this morning saying they're planning to bring back 1,590 megawatts by this evening's peak, and then a further 3,500 by Monday evening. Given what you're saying, this is not even a possibility, I suppose.
I mean, Eskom anticipates, based on the plan that they are having in terms of returning the units, but they're not always accurate with respect to that. And that tells you that there's a little bit of a limited control with respect to what has happened. I mean, we're told that we're going to come, go back to stage 2 at some stage, stage 4 at some stage, but things have worsened. So it's beginning to look like we cannot fully rely on exactly everything that Eskom is telling us with respect to how much control they have over the maintenance and the units.
Hilton, you and I have had this conversation before, and we spoke about the approach to be able to procure. And listening to Eskom again today, they say that they plan to approach the market to procure whatever megawatts are available on an urgent basis, looking to procure 1,000 megawatts from available generation capacity, and saying that this, will not all be available immediately, though. At the same time, you're listening in that briefing, they say this is not our job to do this. They putting it on the Department of Minerals and Resources, and then the department also speaks about another thing. So it boggles the mind as to why there's still this sense of a lack of urgency around this particular issue of procurement.
So it doesn't boggle my mind at all, because it's very clear to me. Nobody, not Eskom, not the DMRE, can tell you how many of those 80 units that are old and have been hammered are going to break down. But what we know is that many of them will break down in an unpredictable way. Sometimes 5 of them at the same time, sometimes 10 at the same time. There are about 10 broken down now. Sometimes a few of them will work for all the time. They are old and they need to be replaced. That is the position. And they have needed to be replaced for many years, and the only entity that can authorize their replacement is the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy. Eskom is not allowed to just build a new power station. The department and the minister have to order somebody to do it, either Eskom or an independent power producer. And until we have new generation on the grid, and we have to build it fast, we will continue with this problem. That is we can be sure of. So blaming Eskom for not looking after a whole lot of really old machines that are going to break down is barking up the wrong tree. Eskom is fighting fires. That's all it's doing. The real problem is we need 6,000 extra megawatts on the grid, and the DMRE has to get its act together to procure that generation. And the fastest way it can do it is with wind and PV. They are the fastest to build.
Ruse, your thoughts on that one?
My thoughts on sorry?
Your thoughts on what Hilton just said, that if we are coming very hard on Eskom right now, we're backing up the wrong tree. We should be looking at the DMRE to also make sure that things move as speedily as possible here. Can we, though, exonerate Eskom and look at only the DMRE?
No, we can't. I mean, if you look at all the power plants that Eskom has, some are really, really old, but some that are not performing very well today. If you look at the availability factors on those, they're not as old as, if you look at the different power plants and analyze them one by one, you see that there are relatively newer ones that are performing far worse than the old ones. So yes, it's valid to say that some of the plants are old, but there are plants that are not as old that are still giving problems. We move from saying that it's the maintenance issues, talking about sabotage and all sorts of things. So there is a level to which, yes, you can exonerate Eskom, but there is a level to which at the same time, there should be some accountability from a management point of view. Eskom is a national key point. It should be protected. But if we are going to hear about sabotage and all sorts of things, those are the things that I don't understand.
And South Africans today waking up to stage 6, I mean, they are quite upset. And I'm going to bring the same question to you, Hilton. Jose, where then do they apportion the blame? On whose doorstep do they take their accountability demands to right now?
The accountability goes to the whole of cabinet, the whole of South African cabinet, in the sense that the different parties within government have the different roles to play, including the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy from a procurement of new capacity. We have been talking about this challenge for many years, but we have not been able to see these strides that recently the president tried to make by coming up with a plan. So those things should have been done a long time ago, bearing in mind that infrastructure development has long lead times. So you can't come up with a solution today and think that in 2 days' time, that solution, we will see fruition out of that solution.
And for you, Hilton?
Well, I think that Jose and I certainly agree on one thing. This isn't going to be solved overnight. And I agree with her. Better maintenance has to be done, or should be done by Eskom. Whether we can expect a utility that has got really demoralized over the state capture years, with a number of corrupt execs put in charge, a whole lot of corruption taking place, to be turned around. Also a company that is really short of finance and skilled people to do that maintenance is an open question. So I think, yes, we need two things: better maintenance, but I'm not expecting that because you've got the Eskom that you've got. But what we can do, and we know we can do, is we can put more capacity on the grid. And that can be done with it. We can start now, and with each 6 months to a year, we can put 1,000, 2,000 megawatts more onto the grid. The thing is that for 7 years, hardly any new generation capacity has been contracted by the DMRE. So there's been this big gap in putting new capacity onto the grid, and now we're paying the price. And Jose is completely right. You can't suddenly wake up today and build infrastructure. It should have been done 3 years ago. It wasn't, so we must do it now.
Pardon me, Hilton. At the same time, though, there were names that Solidarity had submitted when it comes to addressing the issue of skills, shortage on that front. But we haven't seen anything happen there.
Well, you must put yourself in the shoes of a talented engineer that is looking to do something at the moment. In my belief, the people that are the talented, highly skilled engineers and other professionals at Eskom, they're almost working purely on patriotism now, because we've got a huge skill shortages in South Africa, and there are lots of much more interesting jobs which are much more rewarding to be done than sitting at Eskom and being blamed for what's been done in the past, and people telling you they're going to fire you every 5 minutes. So, yeah, I think it's much more complicated than just saying these people will come and work there. The conditions have to be right. You can't just, we're not living in a dictatorship where we can just order people to go and work. The conditions must be right. And they're very difficult in Eskom at the moment. I take my hat off to the people working in those conditions with the kind of blame being thrown at them. And also the lack of new capacity being put on the system. So they just get blamed and blamed and blamed.
And one wonders really what is keeping them together, and really would like to hear from them. Jose, I'm out of time in 10 seconds. It sounds like a catch-22 situation, though.
Yes, we need new capacity, but we need to at least manage what we have as well, in order to complement what we have. We can't just say 15,000 megawatts are out of the system, are out on unplanned maintenance, and that's that. I agree with Hilton. We should have some sympathy for Eskom, but not all the way.
Sure. Yeah, I wish we had an hour to talk about this. There's so much to talk about. I mean, Hilton, we didn't even begin to enter into the structural defects that we've heard about, you know, over time and what they mean now going forward. But let me thank you both for your time. Do appreciate it as we tried really to just make sense of what is going on right now. There's just so many layers to the story. That was a development finance specialist, Ruse Moleshe, and independent energy research consultant, Hilton Trollip.